Okay, welcome to the main section of today's podcast, where I'm joined by the wonderful Kat Button, who I have already introduced, but welcome to the podcast again, Kat Button.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It is nice to be here.
No, genuinely, thank you so much for wanting to appear on Music Fishbowl. And I said in my introduction, which I pre-record, I said I'm very much interested in speaking with you because I feel like your music has a lot of interesting stories within it, which I'm sure we will possibly touch upon in a bit. But the first question I like to ask all artists anyway, just as a for those who don't know your music so much to begin with, is what genre would you say best possibly describes your music, if you can describe it that way?
Um, so basically, Dan, it's taken me a while to record music and release music, and I think throughout that time, it's taken me a while to actually discover my genre, one specific genre. But the thing that's been my constant is the topic in which
Mm,
I write about. So, for example, I've just released an album called Refocus, and the main theme of that album is mental health and mental health recovery. Now, being a musician and a music teacher and having a lot of interest in different genres, I do kind of touch on lots of different genres. For example, I look at EDM, I look at trance, I look at pop, I look at chill pop, I look at garage and R&B. I would probably describe myself normally as dance pop, EDM, but in the album, I kind of have a go at everything really, just have a bit of a play and explore as my story kind of develops. And I think it's quite nice to be multi-genre in that sense because it's a concept album.
mm.
The different types of genres tend to correlate with the different parts of the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, they all I guess it's making the sound of the album, the sonic side of the album, part of the story, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think one of the ways of doing that, for me anyway, is slightly changing the genre for each track.
Yeah, exactly. No, totally agree with that. What I like to do when I speak to artists, I like to try and do some kind of chronological storytelling through an artist's life and career as well. So I'm going to start off with my next line of inquiry. Is going to be asking you about what music was playing in the household when you were growing up, or wherever you were living at the time. We can go back to young childhood here. What was playing around you that you were the first musical hearing you were experiencing?
Oh, I love this question. It's funny, isn't it? Because it's so different for everybody. And
Mm,
as a teacher, I know that so many children are influenced by the music that their parents listen to when they grow
mm,
up. And
yeah.
I'm no different. So when I was a child, my parents used to listen to the 60s. So Del
Mm,
Shannon, the Beatles, Manfred Mann, um, all of the huge 60s artists. And then
mm,
when I was a bit older, I was introduced to the music of Jean-Michel Jarre.
mm,
So he's a French electronic
yeah.
musician, and he did this amazing concert called La Défense in
Mm,
1990 in the streets of Paris. And as a 7-year-old at that point, I was absolutely mesmerized.
mm,
And the concert was so far ahead of its time with not just the music, but the pyrotechnics and
mm.
the visuals and everything. And I think, Dan, I must have watched that about, goodness, 70 times. I was absolutely
Mm,
transfixed. And I think having released one of my more recent tracks, Happy Place, I think
mm,
that's a definite nod to the music of the early 90s. And I think I hadn't realized until I released that track how much of an influence early 90s dance was and how
mm.
much it means to me. Because obviously, growing up, I would say, I mean, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but for me, 90s music is definitely my favorite decade for
Yeah,
a lot of different reasons, but especially the electronic, the start of
yeah.
the electronic, genre kind of dominating in that sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's you can hear it across your music, to be fair, I will say that, and, I guess then when obviously talking there a little bit about, 1990 kicking in,
Mhm.
I assume going on from there, you then found more of your own music tastes and started branching out a bit more, or did you hone in on one specific style of music that really just gravitated towards you?
So I've always really admired the musicality of Jean-Michel Jarre because he's not
Mm,
just an EDM artist, he's a musician. And
Yeah.
I think there can be a real distinction between the two, because he doesn't just make electronic music, he understands.
Yeah.
You know, he understands the theory. And being a music educator myself, I like to kind of look at things like how the keys relate, and tones and modes, and intervals, and, you know, interesting harmonies and suspensions, and try and use those in my music. Because I enjoy that. It's because music's meant to be fun first and
Yeah.
foremost, and I find that enjoyable. And then I think a lot of the music is my music is kind of influenced by styles of music as I was growing up. So living in Southampton, the garage scene was huge, and still continues to be, but especially in kind of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And my first track of the album, Begging You to Go, has a real flavour. That's a really bad joke, because obviously Craig David's from Southampton, so yeah. But it has a real kind of flavour of yeah, I'm not very funny, sorry. Has a real flavour of you know, music of the time.
Yeah.
And then obviously as I kind of get older and discover more music, I try and be inspired by music, you know, up and coming music. It kind of then went to, say, Robin, who has With Every Heartbeat is probably one of my favourite songs,
Yeah.
because I love the mix of electronic and classical, and the orchestration, and the structure's really different. And I just think she's great. And I think trying to use that idea of combining the electronic with the classical, because I'm classically trained, I think that was another kind of influence in my thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely does. And you mentioned there as well, actually, and a nice segue for me, because my next question is going to be about when you started playing music. Obviously, mentioning that you're classically trained. When did you start playing music yourself then?
So I went to my parents the other day, and we had this, you know, when they start getting the photos out, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh no. And yeah, my dad showed me this photo. He keeps on showing me this, and I was like, oh, you've shown me about 50 times, but it's his favorite photo of me. So it's a picture of, there's 4 of us, and we're about 3. And there's 3 other people that have these sleigh bells. I mean, we're doing jingle bells, obviously.
Yeah.
And they look so bored. Like, they're just like, I don't want to be here. And then there's me with my sleigh bells, like living my absolute best life, like literally like shaking those sleigh bells like my
Yeah.
life depends on it. And I think that was the point where I was like, okay, I really quite like music.
Yeah.
And then when I was 7, my granny, who was one of my biggest music supporters, she was actually the one that noticed that I had some kind of musical talent, if you say, or
Yeah.
certainly interest. So she bought me my first clarinet for my 7th birthday, and she took me to a concert at London South Bank. And I can't actually remember what symphony it was, but I think it was the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain were playing a symphony. And yeah, there's a part where there's this clarinet solo, and I was absolutely mesmerized. And I said to my parents, I want to play that instrument. So started with that, and then took on the recorder, including when I was 9, I was the Pied Piper of Hamelin in my school play, where you had to play the recorder and have people dressed up as rats following me. That was pretty special. And then I started learning the piano quite late, actually. So I was 15 when I started learning the piano. And I said to my parents, I want to be a music teacher. And although they liked music, they didn't know a lot about how you get into being a music teacher, what instruments you should know. So we found out pretty late that it's very helpful to play piano or guitar. So I was like, I want to learn the piano. So being a pretty okay musician, I guess, I was quite a quick learner. So I went through the grades very quickly.
Yeah.
But clarinet was always my main instrument. So I went to university in Southampton, where I live now. I majored in clarinet performance and ensemble performance. So I was in a wind quartet called Four Winds. And we were professional for a short time. So we did a couple of 1 or 2 concerts, but then they all went to music college, and I went to teach. But it was just really nice being around people that were such accomplished performers, and it was a real privilege. And yeah, and then I kept on doing the teach that I'm doing. I learnt ukulele, so I play some ukulele. I know a few guitar chords, not many, but that's one of my missions to look at that. And then as the years have gone by, I've become really interested in production and arranging, especially because I run choirs. And I think as a choir leader who writes her own music, I'm fascinated by arranging pieces, not just
Yeah.
writing, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's quite evident also in some of my music when I enjoy not only writing the songs, but arranging things,
Yeah.
choosing where voices come in, how many harmonies and how they overlay, and using things like polyphony and all these kind of musical tools, as it were.
Yeah. No, well, it's interesting actually to know where this all fits in with your music you've now produced and got out there, because as you said earlier, it took you a long time to start, recording and doing your own music. Obviously, early years full of studying and also having a career as a teacher as well, which you still do. But when did you start sort of songwriting and making your own music? When did that start, and where did it fit into the story?
So Dan, I've been writing songs for ages. My first one was about my pet hamster when I was 9. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a special moment. But I kind of wrote songs on and off. Like I said, I majored on instrumental performance. But it wasn't until I left university when I became quite mentally unwell. And things were tough, really difficult. Wasn't sure how the future would look at that point, but me
Yeah.
being stubborn, I was determined to get better and recover, and I did.
Yeah.
And I longed to write songs about the process, but I didn't feel ready to do it. I felt too
Yeah.
triggered.
Mm.
That all changed in 2022 when I did a course about mental health in young children and young people. And I wasn't triggered. And I thought, I've managed to do this course for 3 months. I haven't been triggered at all. Why don't I start writing? So for my birthday the following year, my lovely husband paid for me to go to a recording studio.
Yeah.
Literally one of the best days of my life. I can't believe, it's taken me until, then when I was 40 to be like, right, now you're in a recording studio. I wish I'd done it sooner, but hey, better late than never.
Yeah.
So I did that and I was like, oh, this is good, isn't it? And then I kept on seeing the recording engineer. So I produce everything at home and then I go and see the recording engineer and re-record my vocals.
Yeah.
Because he's got better mics and better equipment than I have. And then just this inspiration kept going. We recorded loads of songs. He mixed them all and mastered them. I kind of armed and ahed about what order they go in, which ones to include, took some out, put some in, procrastinated, changed the order again. And then I was like, actually, there's never going to be a perfect order. There's never going to be a perfect kind of time to do it. And I think it's good for it to be a little bit raw and maybe not quite perfect, because it documents my mental health recovery. And actually, sometimes it's messy and but at the end there's a beautiful destination. And I think it's the fact that I was like, actually, some of the songs were produced 2 years ago and I would do it differently now. But if I changed it and didn't release it as it is, it wouldn't tell the proper story, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
it's
I had
capturing that moment, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think I had to get it out as it was. And then if I want to write another album, I can do things differently. But for the sake of this being a concept album, talking about mental health recovery from diagnosis through therapy, through recovery, through to ways of looking after your mental health, it needs to be authentic.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. It's an important message that without authenticity, it's so flat. The authenticity is what makes it real and allows people to delve into not only the story but into the sentiments and the meaning behind every song. I said in my introduction actually that as a writer, I feel like you write not only from the heart but from the mind and from the soul. As in, you're really getting that whole the whole emotive process around these experiences, every emotion and everything that was being felt is there, and it's a very relatable feeling, I think, for many people who will listen to your music. I want to preface anything as well going forward, because obviously we are talking about subjects that can potentially be upsetting for some people, or might, as you used word, you weren't getting triggered earlier, it could be triggering for some people, and distressing. So I do just want to stress, obviously, I'm not going to push hard for anything in these interviews. I never do, to be honest. So I never push, but I'll leave everything up to yourself to speak as much as you like about and I'll ask things openly, as I usually do. But obviously one of the questions I ask a lot of artists is there a particular subject that they tend to write about, or a theme that they write about that they commonly go to, or do they just kind of go here, there, and everywhere? But with yourself, I think it is more likely that there is this theme. So yeah, are we able to delve a little bit more into that theme a bit more, if that's okay?
Absolutely, yeah. So at the beginning of the album, it talks about being diagnosed with OCD, because OCD is one of those things where it's so misunderstood and it's so stereotyped, and people say to me, "Oh, that means you must be really tidy." I mean, I am a really messy person. My husband would tell you that, as I'm not the tidiest, but it's very misunderstood, and there's so much stigma.
Yeah,
And
I will say, as someone who is diagnosed as well, I will say that I totally understand that as well. So yeah.
And it's frustrating, isn't it? And it's like you kind of have this thing that's invisible, but it's also really misunderstood.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of it is the intrusive thoughts, and I wanted to, obviously, sharing what I wanted to share, choosing what I want to share, but I wanted to kind of show the listener the reality of OCD, because there's various different types. But mine is mostly the intrusive thoughts. So I thought it was important for people to kind of be, hopefully, a bit educated about what it can be, instead of what people think it is.
Yeah.
And then, I wanted to write about, the anxiety, because it is an anxiety disorder. So anxiety is a huge part of it. And then kind of overthinking, again, huge part of it. And then moving on to the will it ever get better? Will things get better musically as well as medically? Because also I was at a point where, as a musician, I spent a lot of time having people say no, people saying not for us. And also medically, it's like, are things ever going to get better?
Yeah.
Is things going to change? So I think I really enjoy writing angry songs. I seem to write quite a lot of angry songs when you kind of like, when things are tricky and you just kind of sit in your studio and you just write and you get all this emotion out, and it's raw and it's unfiltered and it's authentic and genuine. And actually, I like writing songs when I'm happy, but I also like writing songs when I'm really annoyed.
Yeah.
And I think Chasing My Breakthrough is a product of that.
Yeah, no, it's that's the thing. It's like, I think, and this is something that goes for so many, because there's mental wellness, and obviously there's diagnosis like OCD, which is often, well, most likely the case, going to be for life, and then there's obviously mental health diagnosis, which can be, you can fight through and come out the other side. Like I think for so many of them, not either way, it's just very misunderstood for many of them, because I guess for so many years, it's only really, when you think about it, it's only the last 20 years that OCD's truly been taken seriously, I guess, as an actual something to get, like, it just went hidden before. You didn't think, oh, let's take our child to see if they've potentially got OCD or something like that. Like, you just didn't do it, did you?
No, and I think that's true, Dan, for mental ill health in general. So without going into a lot of detail, there's a history of mental ill health in my family, especially with my mum. And, she suffers, especially suffered before, but better now, but suffered more with mental ill health. And although there is still some misunderstanding these
Mm,
days. There is more talk about it, whereas back then, say 30, 35 years ago, there is so much less. So it is improving. More
yeah,
needs to be done, but it is, like you said, there is more talk and awareness because it
yeah,
just wasn't there, say 30,
yeah.
35 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's the importance. And my what is it? Two pennies, the phrase that you have.
Hmm.
My thought on it is that the more, because one thing I notice a lot is that people, when people are suffering with mental illness, a lot of the people around them will kind of try and help,
Mm.
and their efforts won't see results, which is fair enough. Like, they've tried, but sometimes people aren't ready, and they'll then get annoyed at the person for that. And it's like, no, you got to remember, you're not actually really interacting with the person so much, you're interacting with the illness. Like, the person's still who they were before. There's no difference there. It's they've got an illness that's causing difficulties, and we have to understand that. And I think the more that it's spoken about, the more people will be able to get, it's not even understand, because that's condescending, that be able to realize, or at least be able to learn how to communicate with mental illness, rather than trying to communicate with the person
Mm.
who's got the illness, almost as if the illness isn't there, because the same tactics aren't going to work. So I do think that's important, and that's a bit of two pence. I don't know if you agree, but that's two
Oh,
pence that I want to put in there.
100%. Absolutely, Dan. And I think also I wanted to show with my music and especially the album that things can get better
Yeah.
and will get better. So in the early days of my diagnosis, my OCD was incredibly severe.
Mm,
And I didn't really know how things were going to pan out. I was 21 at the time,
yeah.
didn't really know. But I'm also really stubborn and determined. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
show this therapist that said that she doesn't quite know how things are going to pan out,
Yeah.
and recover and do everything that I can to
Yeah.
recover and look after myself, go to therapy and do everything that I need to live my life.
Mm,
And music is a massive part of that, because writing these songs has actually been a way of processing what's happened and
yeah.
the journey. And I can kind of look back on it and like the album and be like, oh, I got through that, and
Mm.
things are still tough these days, but I know more how to cope with it and how to deal with things.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's music is a healer, isn't it, for so
Oh,
many people, I think.
100%. Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, and that's why I think it's, if you're somebody who does struggle to just talk, there's other ways to communicate as well, and like, music is so one
Absolutely.
of
No,
them.
it's interesting you say that, because I would say, like, not so much now because I like talking now, but for years I
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily say to somebody, hey, I need to talk to you about this. I don't know
Mm.
why. I just didn't. But I would write a song about it. And now, if I'm struggling, I will go straight to my laptop. I go straight to the studio and
Yeah.
write something.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice because I'll say to a friend, or I say to my husband, "This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on.
Mm.
Take a listen to this. I'll make you a cup of tea, but
Yeah.
take a listen to this." So it's yeah, it is, like you said, it's therapeutic and it's a way of
Mm.
communication for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I should say, because I haven't said it already, and it's a bit rude of me not to, is a huge congratulations on the album, by the way,
Oh,
on
thank you.
Refocus. It is a fantastic record, and yeah, I actually want to ask about the title of the album as
Mhm,
Refocus, as you say, because there's a concept, and
mhm.
it's a story album, etc. The title Refocus. What's the significance behind that title?
So there was only ever going to be one title, and that was
Mm,
refocus. So refocus is a term used in CBT, which stands for cognitive behavioral
yeah,
therapy. And there are four. You may or may not know about it, but
yeah,
so there's four different parts
mm,
of this CBT, the four R's, and refocus is one of them.
yeah,
And I thought that it was very poignant for the whole point of the album of sharing the reality of mental health,
yeah,
but also sharing the hope of recovery. So
yeah,
basically, refocusing all your negative thoughts and making them more positive.
yeah,
And there is a real part of the album during the track called CBT where the whole mood of the album changes.
mm,
So the instrumentation changes. I go from writing in only minor keys to major keys, but then minor keys with transitions,
Yeah.
to the relative major and all this kind of stuff. So there is a definite shift in focus.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely hear that. That's one thing I really found quite striking about the album actually was how experimental it is at times. And as you say there, moving what you're doing with the major and minor keys. I mean, that's part of it. And there's a song on the album that I really like, and it's just got incredible sort of vocal work that I felt sounded quite experimental as well, and that's Anxiety Strikes.
Okay.
I love the vocal work on that. Almost like the backing vocals as well that you've added into it. I absolutely love that. I just think it just sounds incredible.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I just wanted to say that. But yeah, no, I like the idea of what you said there as well about refocusing, because one thing that I don't know, again, I might be wrong, but I feel like something that I've observed at least is that um mental wellness and well-being, and mental illness, and it can come from, it could be triggered, or it can just appear without a trigger as well. And I think for those, especially for those where there is no trigger, it's so important to refocus, because it is thoughts, isn't it, that just need to be changed almost, isn't it, from negative to positive, as you say.
Absolutely. And in the latter half of the album, I talk about going back to nature, which is track 9. And it's amazing
I
how.
love that song, by the way. I was going to
Oh,
ask you about that song later, so I will ask you about that.
it's interesting you say that, because that nearly didn't make it in. So
Really?
because it's so different. So basically, there's a nice story behind that. So that song was originally written for my school choir, and they sang it in a competition.
Yeah.
The judges they commented on it, which was really lovely.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, oh, Happy Place and Together are a bit more trancey, EDM-y
Yeah.
kind of sound. I wasn't going to put it in, but I thought, actually, I think the album needs something a bit calmer. It needs something to keep the listener interested and to kind of relax a little bit, encourage the listener to sit back, kick back, and just enjoy nature.
Yeah. It's almost like it's kind of learning. Well, not learning. It's kind of like it's just a moment, because I think people already know. It's just a moment of sitting back and realizing what the world has to offer, I guess.
Exactly. And so many people, Dan, that I've spoken to, they've said that that's their favorite song, which really surprises me, because like I said, it nearly didn't make it on because it just seemed so different from the others.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that it is, because it's part of the story, not just to encourage people to go back to nature and embrace nature, but also the fact that for me personally, it was a song that I wrote for my school choir at the time, and that just is important as well.
Yeah. No, yeah, I guess it's a sort of a moment of quiet and solitude and calmness within actually what is quite a hyperactive record in many ways, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like it is, because it is, and that's something I wanted to ask you about as well, because a lot of the music in, like, some of the subjects you're speaking about, or singing about, should I say, they're so, like, hard hitting in many ways, and they're so, you know, not only relatable for people, but also, they're relatable in a way in which it's really gonna make an impact emotionally. But then at the same time, the music sometimes is just absolutely going off like mad, because it is, as you say, like, you've got songs that have got that more EDM trancey sound to them, and there's kind of that juxtaposition at times as
Yeah.
well. Was that a deliberate, because it works, it totally
Yeah.
works, and
Yeah.
it really does suit the exact stories you're trying to tell. But was that something that was conscious, or did it just come out that way?
Yeah, it was. So Together is, so I wanted to make Together a celebration of reaching out when you need to,
Yeah.
because rather than say, oh, you're sad, oh, things are really tricky, oh, that's awful, you need to talk to somebody. I wanted to make it seem like a celebration, that people, if you're struggling, or if you know that people are struggling, or you have an idea, even if they seem happy, you still need to check in with people. Because it can often be the people that look the happiest sometimes aren't. So it's encouraging people to reach out to others, but that's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. So I wanted it to be like a party, but celebrating being there for others.
Yeah, it's that refocus idea again, isn't it?
Yeah,
As you said,
exactly.
it's not a sign of
Exactly.
weakness, it's a sign of strength, because, you know, for a millennia it's been seen as a sign of weakness, whilst
100%.
in the last, let's say, it's not even, I know earlier we were saying 20 years, but that's more of a diagnosis side of things. When it comes to actually speaking out, it is the last 5 years, 6, 7 years, maybe, really, in reality, which is kind of worrying when you think, you know, how long people have had to, you know, experience what's on the record. I wanted to ask also about Happy Place as well,
Okay.
because Happy Place is the reason I wanted to ask about it. Less so, and I it, honestly, no, this isn't me saying don't speak about this, because I would love you to. Less so the content of the actual song itself, but more just the actual musicality of it, because it's a pumping song. I love that song. It's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just tell me more about that song if you can, because out of personal interest for me.
So I wanted to do something that was proper 90s inspired. You can probably tell there's simps everywhere. It's proper 90s.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, I want to go to my happy place. But I think a lot of people miss out the idea that, for example, say you got tickets for a gig or something. It's not just going to the gig that's your happy place, it's the entire journey. So, you know, somebody might go to, I don't know, go for drinks with friends beforehand, or go to a restaurant, and then, you know, you go into the taxi on the way, and it's all part of it, the journey. So it's talking about run to your happy place, because you know that you are going somewhere that brings you joy and helps to kind of quieten the mental health demons, as it were. It celebrates the whole process and not just the destination.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's kind of, I guess, the whole story of the album in a way. Because even when you just look at the track names here, we've got, you know, at the start, Begging You to Go, Anxiety Strikes, Alone with My Mind, and then eventually by the end of it, we're looking at, you know, Happy Place, Together, Back to Nature, Best Years of My Life. Like, can you just tell us how the story kind of evolves and changes as the album does go through?
Yeah, so basically, Dan, tracks 1 to 4 is just highlighting the reality of mental health, including OCD, anxiety, which falls under the same umbrella. But I used to get a lot of panic attacks as well. So that was looking at that. So Anxiety Strikes basically shows the reality of having a panic attack. And I do quite like the ending of the song, because I focus a lot on the instrumentation, and it gives that kind of claustrophobic feeling. And then you got the Alone with Your Mind, where you're kind of bombarded by thoughts at 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's set in the middle of the night. And then CBT, well, Chasing My Breakthrough is about kind of looking for a breakthrough, both medically and musically. Track 5, CBT, is when everything changed for the better. And yeah, it's funny. That's one of my favorite songs, because it's got this bit like in the bridge where it's kind of spoken rap, but not rap. I'm not a rapper at all, but it's you know, when you just stick on one note and it's very rhythmical. And then going into the happy place, whoop, kind of 90s nostalgia. Love a good 90s song. So looking at that, but trying to make it modern at the same time. There's like obviously looking back to the past, but then again looking to the future as well. That kind of refocus element of it as well. And then Holiday from My Mind again was another one that I nearly didn't include, because it was written a year and a half before Happy Place, and I do think that the standard of my production and my songwriting in a year and a half has improved and changed a lot. So when you have track 6 Happy Place and track 7 Holiday from My Mind, I did think that they didn't seem to kind of match up standard wise. But then I was like, actually, like I said before about keeping it real and keeping it authentic,
Yeah.
actually, once you get to your happy place, which is Holiday from My Mind, it needs to be simple, it needs to be easy, it needs to be effortless. So
Yeah.
Holiday from My Mind contains 2 chords throughout the entire thing, but
Yeah.
it's how they're used, it's how you change them up, whether it's changing them quickly or not. Yeah, so it's musically a lot more simple than Happy Place, but you have the things like the harmony, which adds the melodic interest
Yeah.
to it. And then moving into Together, which again, I've got a thing about minor keys. I love minor keys. So someone they sent a message to me. They said, "Oh, Kat, did you mean to write Happy Place in D minor?" And I was like,
Mm.
"Absolutely, I did."
Yeah.
Because it's that kind of, because you're still on the way to
Mm.
your happy place. You're not
Yeah.
there, but it's still, there's a bit in the bridge where it goes into the relative major
Yeah.
and sounds, kind of, there's elements of kind of 90s, potentially like Moby kind of
Yeah.
inspiration. And then track 8 Together is yet again in a minor key, but it's again, I love writing songs that seem to have a positive message in a minor key. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
like a good minor key. Love a good
Yeah.
minor key. And then Back to Nature and Best Years of My Life are full on joyful.
Yeah.
There's no hiding the fact that they are happy, content songs. Full on major major key. Back to Nature has a kind of a very dramatic key change at the end,
Yeah.
which I don't usually use key changes in my songs because I wrote it for a choir. A lot of choral stuff, especially for children, has that stuff in it. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, I'll just keep it in because I quite like it. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know exactly that with the because I used to teach, as I said to you before we started recording, and
yeah,
yeah, the amount I used to teach in a primary school, so the amount of
yeah,
children's songs I heard were quite a lot, and they do that a lot.
they
As a
do.
musician, I can identify that, and I'm like, yes, I can hear that a lot. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but I was just going to say that not many. I don't think many musicians do that nowadays, do they? I mean, you had
No.
like Westlife back in the day, where they have the dramatic key change and they stand up on their stools and stuff, which I love.
Mm.
I love a good key change, and I thought, you
Yeah.
know what, I'm going to use it because why not?
Yeah, so when I hear a key change now, it always shocks me and makes me remember the song because
Yeah,
I
no,
just don't
exactly. Yeah,
hear
yeah,
them the same. I want to ask something as well. I want to go back to something you said previously, where you said that you you went on the mental welfare course,
yeah.
for children,
Hmm.
and you said it wasn't triggering you.
Hmm.
And I had a thought at the time when you said it. It's almost like discovering a purpose for your experiences, right? To be able to help others and teach others about it and things like that. What would you like people to take away from the album?
So I would like people to take away a few things. First of all, at the beginning of the album, the reality of mental ill health, how
Mm,
debilitating it can be, how lonely it can be, and the
yeah,
fact that actually by sharing this, helping people feel less alone.
yeah,
Because there are some artists that share about their experiences with mental health, but
mm,
there aren't that many compared to what a lot of people write about. And I
yeah,
think it's good because it makes people feel less alone and it encourages
hmm,
people to talk about it. I also want to kind of get people to understand that things can and will get better. It's hard, it really is. And I
mm,
think recovery doesn't mean that it's perfect. But like for me, I will always have the symptoms of OCD, but now I
mm,
have the tools that I need to ensure that I can live a really happy life. And
mm,
when, I'm triggered, I have the tools that I have from my therapy to
mm,
basically put it back into
Yeah.
its box. You know what I mean? Just kind of
Yeah.
control it and stop it from becoming
It's
problematic.
management, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so basically by the end of the album, when it's very joyful, just again, just that joy, things can get better. And I think also encouraging people to use music as a tool. For me, music is a tool that has helped me process. It's helped me to look back and be proud of how far I've come.
Yeah.
Because the album is like a storybook of the journey, and I look back and think, oh, I've done all right. I think, you know, it's been difficult, but yeah, from where I was to the middle to where I am now, I mean, it's still not easy, I'm not going to lie, but I can look back and think I've come a long way.
Yeah.
And just to give that encouragement to other people that the art can help you, whatever art you do can help you process and manage and actually live life. Because I love music is literally my happy place, and it has been there every step of the way and will continue to be there every step of the way. It is a constant in my life, and I will forever be grateful because it helped me to write something that I'm really proud of, B, that I never thought in a million years I would ever write an album, because I never thought I would feel ready to, or not triggered. So yeah, it's nice to have a look and be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. And it's not only congratulations on, you know, on the record, but also congratulations for, you know, the journey that there's been to get to the record actually being made and produced and written and released, etc. as well, because, you know, that's such a huge part of the album. So congratulations on all of that. And yeah, I encourage anyone to go and listen to Refocus. I think it's a fantastic record. I think what's there is not only just brilliant in terms of music wise. If you just want to put it on and just listen and dance, you can. But if you then focus elsewhere on it, there's so much that's interesting to just listen to and understand and feel. So I really encourage people to go and listen to the record. Kat, I want to ask, what's up next in your musical journey?
Well, it's really funny because you know how like you kind of things sometimes happen that you had no idea about.
Yeah.
So I've actually ended up doing a few things that I would never in a million years have thought I would ever do. So I ended up on a mental health TV show.
Oh yeah.
Talking, which was really, I would never in a million years have thought that, but it just happened. So I went on a mental health TV show, and I was talking about my album and my journey. So that was really cool. Had my makeup done and everything. That was exciting. So that was a really cool experience. And I've also done some articles in mental health magazines about the album as well. So that's been really nice. So it's just doing the things that I would never in a million years have thought would have happened. But it's something that actually I quite like writing articles. It's a lot of fun and I enjoy it. So there's that side of it. So, you know, maybe looking at that, more of that at some point. But in the future, I'm definitely going to embrace the EDM trance side in the future. I think it's taken me a little while to discover my not set genre, but genre that I really want to explore a little bit. Because like I said before, Dan, I do like a lot of different genres, but I want to explore EDM, especially trance, a bit more. So I've got a single coming out in sometime in January. I haven't decided when yet, but that will be mid-Jan. And then I'm hoping to do basically release a single February, March, every 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, I have to get on and sort that out. But possibly an album. It would be nice. I mean, it would be very different. It would be not a concept album. It would just be about some different topics, looking at my ADHD diagnosis, for example, because that came later. But focusing on dance, so trance and dance and EDM, because yeah, that's something that as a musician, I like to experiment, I like to discover, and yeah, I think when I did Refocus, I didn't really know what genre was my genre, and I think there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being multi-genre. That's amazing as well, but I'd quite like to stick to one genre for a time anyway, and just really just discover and experiment with that.
Yeah, no, totally looking forward to all of that. So there's a lot going on, a lot we
Mhm.
can look forward to. New single in January as well, which is the nearest thing to come. So very much looking forward to that. Kat, do you want to let people know where they can find your music and yourself online as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram, kat.button.songwriter.
Hmm.
I'm also on TikTok, kat.button, and Refocus is available on all streaming services, including Spotify and Apple Music.
Super excellent. Kat, I want to say a huge thank you for coming on to Music Fishbowl. We'll wrap up quickly after the recording, but just a huge thank you, and it's been great to hear your story and to share that.
Oh, thank you for having me, Dan. It's been great. Thank you.
No problem, not a worry at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.